Lenovo has refreshed the popular L340 as the Ideapad Gaming 3, but now it has an AMD Ryzen 4000 option, so just how well does it perform in games? I've tested the 1650 Ti model in 22 games at all setting levels, and also compared it against other laptops to find out the difference. Let's jump straight into the results from those 22 titles, then the comparisons after. Microsoft Flight Simulator wasn't great at high settings, and Ultra was a no-go. Medium was alright, but there were less noticeable dips with the low-end setting preset. Death Stranding was around 60 FPS with the highest setting preset. It was running okay, and there wasn't all that much of an improvement comparatively with the lower settings. Red Dead Redemption 2 was tested using the game's built-in benchmark tool. It's not possible to run at ultra settings due to the 4GB VRAM limit of the GTX 1650 Ti graphics. Otherwise, the results are only just ahead of the 1650 in the Nitro 5 I recently tested. Battlefield 5 was tested in campaign mode. High settings was just able to get us 60 FPS, though the 1% low received a nice 52% boost here when compared to the highest ultra preset. I'll compare this laptop against others in this game soon. Control was tested with RTX disabled, as we've just got GTX hardware here. I don't think this one needs a super high frame rate to play, but the low setting preset was needed if you want an above 60 FPS experience. Shadow of the Tomb Raider was tested with the built-in benchmark. Medium settings were needed to hit 60 FPS in this test, but we could surpass this by a fair bit if you're willing to run at lower levels. This is another title I'll use to compare on other laptops shortly. Apex Legends was either tested with all settings at maximum or all settings at the lowest possible values, as it doesn't have predefined setting presets. It was playing fine at max settings, but we could better utilize the screen's 120Hz refresh rate with lower settings. Call of Duty Modern Warfare was tested in campaign mode with either max or min settings for the same reason, but this time even with everything at the lowest possible settings, we're just a little above 60 FPS. Fortnite was tested with the replay feature, and as a less demanding game, even the highest settings were above 60 FPS, while medium would put the frame rate above the screen's refresh rate, then low boosted even the 1% low above this. CSGO was tested with the Euletical FPS benchmark. The game runs on basically anything, and the frame rates are definitely acceptable, so moving on. Dota 2 was tested playing in the middle lane with bots. Interestingly, the results at Ultra were a fair bit lower than the 1650 in the Nitro 5 I recently tested with the same CPU. But again, either way, still no problems at all running it. Overwatch was tested running through the practice range. This is another less demanding esports title, so ultra settings is still able to hit average FPS above the screen's refresh rate, while high settings was near that 120 point for the 1% low. Rainbow Six Siege was tested with the built-in benchmark using Vulkan. There's only minor performance difference between the two top presets, while the averages from high are still about the same. Still though, easily past 100 FPS without issue. Metro Exodus was tested using the built-in benchmark. Most parts of the game perform a fair bit better than this, so don't take these results as a good indication of what to expect throughout the entire game. It's more of a worst case that can be compared against my other data. The Division 2 was also tested with the built-in benchmark and is fairly resource heavy too. Medium settings were needed to pass 60 FPS in this test, though low was doing much better should you want to prefer higher frame rates over looks. Monster Hunter World was tested running through the main town. Mid settings were around that 60 FPS point, and the 1% lows aren't that far behind the averages, which means more consistent results. Borderlands 3 was tested using the game's built-in benchmark, and like many of the other more demanding games, medium settings were required for that 60 FPS sweet spot. Ghost Recon Breakpoint was also tested with the benchmark tool. VRAM limits were being hit at the higher levels, but again, medium was around that 60 FPS point. Assassin's Creed Odyssey is another that was tested with the game's benchmark, and yet again, 60 FPS at medium settings. The Witcher 3 was playing well at high settings, which sees a fairly big jump up from Ultra without looking too different in visual quality in my opinion. F1 2019 was tested with the benchmark tool and sees similar behavior. A nice jump dropping down just one level from max, and this would better take advantage of the 120Hz screen. Far Cry New Dawn was also tested with the game's benchmark. Not that big of a difference between the presets, and high settings was still above 60 FPS. Now let's take a look at how the Ryzen-based Ideapad Gaming 3 compares against other laptops. Use these results as a rough guide only, as they were tested at different times with different drivers. I've tested Battlefield 5 in campaign mode at ultra settings, and the Ideapad is highlighted in red. Interestingly, it's a fair bit behind the Asus TUF A15 with the same CPU and GPU combination 2 spots ahead of it. This is only my second 1650 Ti laptop though, so not too much else in the way of direct comparison yet, but at least it is above all of the 1650 results. These are the results from Far Cry 5 with ultra settings in the built-in benchmark. This time the Ideapad was ahead ahead of the TUF, so it could just be a bad result in BF5. It's also beating the 5500M in the Alpha 15. Granted, that machine does also have the much worse 3750H processor. Otherwise, it's a bit of a jump up to the next tier, being the 1660 Ti Max-Q. Shadow of the Tomb Raider was also tested with the game's benchmark tool with the highest setting preset. The TUF with the same CPU and GPU was a couple of frames ahead, so nothing major, but it's still ahead in 2 of the 3 games we've compared, at least in terms of raw gaming performance anyway. Speaking of a couple of frames, that's the same amount the Ideapad was ahead of the cheaper Nitro 5 with 1650, so not all that different. In many games, we needed medium settings to hit that 60 FPS sweet spot, which is also something I've noticed when testing GTX 1650 laptops previously. It doesn't seem like the Ti really offers that much of a performance boost. I'm still trying to get 2 of the exact same laptop with those 2 GPUs so I can do a fair comparison. It of course depends on the game. Esports titles, for instance, do much better, but for say AAA games, for a good experience, you'll need to sacrifice some graphical settings, or otherwise instead consider something that's more of a step up, like the 1660 Ti, budget permitting of course. Unlike the Nitro 5, or even more expensive RP15, the Ideapad Gaming 3 does have FreeSync, with a 60 to 120Hz FreeSync range, so smooth tear-free gameplay is an option. Here are the screen response time results for the 1080p 120Hz panel. The average gray-to-gray response time was around 15 milliseconds, so not ideal. We want to see an 8.33 millisecond time for all transitions to occur within the refresh window. I've got a link in the description explaining what all of these numbers mean. I've only had 2 other 120Hz panels for testing since buying the tools to measure screen response time. Both the Asus G14 and Razer Blade Stealth 13 had slower response times, but 14 and 13-inch gaming panels are also far more limited compared to 15 inches. Anyway, this definitely isn't as bad as those, it's just nothing amazing. I hope this has been useful. Lenovo weren't able to provide me with this laptop, so I ended up buying it due to a high number of requests. Shout out to the Patreon members who helped me cover popular models like this that you all want to see. I'll leave a link in the description if you want to join us in Discord or check out some behind the scenes videos. Anyway, let me know what you thought of the Lenovo Ideapad Gaming 3 gaming performance down in the comments.
Here's which is why it's vital that you get a laptop that offers the best possible performance you need. But if you have a tight budget, then finding the right laptop becomes even harder. But not if you know where to look. Say hello to the Acer Aspire 7 gaming laptop that is powered by the AMD Ryzen 5 5000 series processor. This laptop might just be the perfect gaming laptop for you. Acer's Aspire series has been a mainstay for the brand for many years now. The series tends to focus on offering users bang for the buck devices. With the new AMD 5000 series processor, the Aspire 7 gaming laptop aims to offer excellent value. In fact, this is the first laptop in India to be powered by the AMD Ryzen 5 5500U processor. The 5000 series is AMD's newest generation of Ryzen processors, which comes with a number of very impressive features that lead to improved performance across the board. For starters, the Ryzen 5 5500U processor in the Acer Aspire 7 Gaming is a 6-core 12-thread processor with a base clock speed of 2.1 GHz. AMD's Ryzen 5000 series processors are manufactured using the 7nm FinFET process. In order to squeeze out more performance out of the same manufacturing process, AMD has unified the L3 cache, which allows the company to get a higher IPC from the cores, ensuring that the CPU isn't a bottleneck for you. Of course, when talking about the performance of a gaming laptop, you have to talk about the GPU. Inside this Acer Aspire 7 gaming laptop is an NVIDIA GeForce GTX 1650 GPU with 4GB of VRAM. These two combined can offer pretty impressive levels of performance when it comes to gaming, especially if you're into playing esports titles like Dota, League of Legends, or even Counter-Strike. In fact, if you're into multiplayer, these multiplayer games may not be graphically intensive, but they do require a good processor. Thankfully, the hexa-core AMD Ryzen 5 5500U processor should be up to the task. In fact, the laptop should be powerful enough to run many AAA titles like Grand Theft Auto 5, Wolfenstein, and Doom. The Acer Aspire 7 gaming laptop also vents to the side and rear, directing air away from your important component and keeping things cool. Another key feature of this Acer Aspire 7 gaming laptop is its 512GB PCIe Gen3 NvMe SSD. This allows for insanely fast load times when playing games. Who wouldn't want that? Of course, all this gaming prowess will be wasted if the display isn't any good. Thankfully, the Acer Aspire 7 gaming laptop packs a 15.6-inch Full HD IPS display. this should offer crisp visuals on the relatively small screen while also offering good viewing angles. As if that wasn't enough, the Acer Aspire 7 gaming laptop also offers a good battery life. The company claims that the device offers up to 10 hours of use on their video playback test. This is in no small part thanks to the efficiency offered by the AMD Ryzen 5 5500U. In fact, AMD claims that the new 5000 series of Ryzen processors offer up to 2 more hours of battery life than the last generation of processors. This was a quick look at the new AMD Ryzen 5 5500U powered Acer Aspire 7 gaming laptop. The feature set of the laptop makes it a compelling option in the entry-level gaming segment.